Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fogman Stories. Today, I'll be sharing with you a story about one of the most well-known cemeteries in Saigon, a cemetery that existed long before 1975, and for decades, was the largest in the city. These days, it's being cleared to make way for schools and parks. I've marked its location on the map for you to check out. Now let's be honest, just the word cemetery is enough to give anyone the chills. And yes, what I'm about to tell you is a ghost story, a truly unsettling one. I first heard this story nearly 20 years ago, when I was still in college. An older friend told it to me. It was short, simple, but tonight, I want to bring that story back, rebuild it, reimagine it, and give it the haunting life it deserves. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and come with me as we explore Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery. Chapter 1. The Cemetery Files. If I could go back to the summer of 2023, maybe I wouldn't have chosen the topic that led me down a road I'll never forget. My name is Tam. Back then, I was a final year journalism student at a university in Saigon. Not the top of the class, not the most diligent, but I had a knack for telling the kinds of stories people actually wanted to read. Not dry or academic ones, but the eerie, curious tales that made your skin crawl just a little. Urban legends, ghost stories, strange places hiding in plain sight. That was my thing. For my graduation thesis, I picked a topic that sounded intellectual enough to pass: the cultural shadow of urban cemeteries in southern Vietnam. But in truth, I just wanted to write about a place most people either avoided or had forgotten. That place was Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery. Before 1975, when Saigon was still the capital of the Republic of Vietnam, the land where Binh Hung Hoa now sits was mostly rural. It was all rice paddies, scattered homes, and muddy canals. Back then, Tan Phu District wasn't even considered part of central Saigon. People buried their dead in family plots or small village graveyards. After 1975, the war ended, the country unified, and Saigon became Ho Chi Minh City. As the city expanded and the population boomed, officials needed a large, centralized cemetery to keep up. That's how Binh Hung Hoa was born. By the 1980s, it had become the biggest cemetery in southern Vietnam. Hundreds of thousands of graves stretched across the land in chaotic clusters. Some were grand family tombs. Others just plain cement slabs with faded names. Here, the dead rested side by side: soldiers, monks, street vendors, performers, gangsters, politicians, all equal in the dirt. As a kid, I used to ride past it on the back of my uncle's motorbike. The walls were tall and moss-covered. You could see the tops of mausoleums poking out like little stone castles. My uncle used to say, "Don't stare too long, ghosts might think you're calling them." That line stuck with me. So when it came time to pick a graduation topic, I thought, why not go back to the place that used to give me chills as a kid? My first visit was on a scorching Thursday afternoon. I packed a notebook, a voice recorder, and a beat-up Canon camera I borrowed from my cousin. I caught the number 27 bus from Trong Chin Street and got off near the main gate on Lo Go Kong Road. Time had not been kind to Binh Hung Hoa. ever since the city started clearing parts of it to make room for new residential areas. Many graves had been dug up and relocated. Places once packed with tombstones were now empty lots overgrown with weeds and broken remains of mausoleums. But in the sections that were still intact, the old chill lingered. At the entrance, I met Chu Ba, a wiry old man with sun-darkened skin and yellowed teeth from too much tobacco. He'd worked as a caretaker there since 1991. Always had a cigarette in hand and eyes half closed like an old shaman. "What are you looking for? Kid? A student? Or shopping early for a burial plot?" he joked, squinting at me with a half smile. I laughed awkwardly and explained my thesis. At first, he waved me off. "Young folks these days just love ghost stories. There's nothing spooky here, just dead bodies and the smell of incense." But when I mentioned the rumors of singing voices in the night, his face changed. He narrowed his eyes, flicked ash off his cigarette, and lowered his voice. "Who told you that? That story's old. Hardly anyone dares speak of it now. But yeah, under the full moon, someone does sing." He stared at me, long and hard, then turned around and motioned for me to follow. That was the moment the real story began, and I had no idea what I was walking into. Chapter 2. Echoes from the Graves. After meeting Uncle Ba, I started visiting Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery more often. At first, it was for my graduation project. But slowly, I wasn't sure if it was just curiosity, or something unseen pulling me back. In a city as noisy and crowded as Saigon, only there did I find a strange kind of silence, not the peace of the living, but of the dead who hadn't truly rested. Every time I stepped through that moss-covered iron gate, I felt like I was leaving Saigon behind and entering another world. The scent of burnt incense, the dampness of the earth, the wind brushing through rows of old tombstones, it all formed a space somewhere between dream and memory. And within that space, I began chasing down the echoes of stories never told. Uncle Ba warned me, if you want to know the past, don't just read the tombstones. You have to listen to the living talk about the dead. So I wandered through the neighborhoods around the cemetery. I stopped by sidewalk cafes, old barbershops, drink stalls, any place where elders gathered. Some laughed at my questions, thinking I was just chasing ghost stories. But others looked at me for a long time, then sighed, and began to share fragments of memories they had buried for decades. Those scattered pieces slowly formed the image of a woman named Han, a Kai Luong singer who once moved hearts across the city. Her full name was Nguyen Ngoc Han. People said that back in the 1970s, she was one of the most famous Kai Luong performers in the Saigon Gia Dinh area. Her voice was sweet and sorrowful, especially in tragic roles like Lan in Lan and Deep, or the Mad Girl in Bloodstained Stage. Some said that whenever she sang, the entire audience would fall silent, spellbound. Han wasn't just gifted, she was beautiful, gentle, with eyes that always seemed to carry a deep, unspoken sadness. I met old Mrs. Sao, a skinny vendor selling drinks near Bin Long Market. At first, she didn't want to talk, but when I mentioned Kai Luong, her eyes lit up. Han used to perform at Sao Dong Hung Theater. "Dear," People adored her, couldn't get enough. Whenever she had a show, tickets sold out by noon. But then, oddly, just like that, she quit. Some said she was banned. Others said she had her heart broken. I think it was both. I asked, "What happened after that, Grandma?" After that, she moved somewhere near here, close to the cemetery. No one saw her much. She lived like she was hiding from the world. Then one day, she vanished. Some said they saw her one last time, wearing a white owl dye, wandering through the cemetery on the night of the full moon in the 7th lunar month. Then, nothing. A chill ran down my spine. The full moon of the 7th month, that's the ghost festival. When people believe the gates of the afterlife open and spirits return to the world of the living. I kept digging and eventually met Mr. Lan, a former gravedigger who had worked there for over 30 years. He lived in a tiny house on the edge of the cemetery, near the cleared-out section. When I asked about Han, he was silent for a long while, then lit a hand-rolled cigarette and said, "Han, I only saw her once. It was a bright moonlit night. I was on the night shift. I heard singing coming from the western section. Not from a radio, not from a speaker, real singing. Rising from the earth, I followed the sound. When I got there, nothing. Just a white owl dye hanging from the branch of an old tamarind tree." I asked if he remembered the song. He stubbed out his cigarette, then softly hummed, his voice trembling like a ghost of memory. "I vow to follow you, to the world beyond?" I didn't dare ask anything more. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from the feeling that I had brushed up against something real, ancient, and still very much alive. A part of the past that refused to fade away. On the way home, I walked along rows of graves just as the sun was setting. A breeze blew gently through the leaves. I stopped at a nameless grave with a chipped stone marker. In that moment, I felt as if someone was standing behind me, not threatening, but watching. I turned around, no one there, but in my ears, I could hear something faint. A woman's voice, soft and sorrowful. "My love, don't leave me alone in this place." Chapter 3. The first night, I decided to return to the cemetery at night. Not because I was brave or reckless, but because what I'd heard from Grandma Sao and Mr. Lan kept echoing in my mind. Especially that line from the old Kai Luong song, "I vow to follow you, to the world beyond." It looped in my head like a broken cassette tape. I asked Min to come with me. He's been my best friend since high school, now studying film at a media center. He's got nerves of steel and a fascination for the paranormal. As soon as I mentioned the idea, he nodded immediately. "Full moon night too? I'm in. Camera, mic, flashlights. I'll bring everything." We made a simple plan. Enter the cemetery around 10 p.m. Bring recording equipment, and head to the western area where Mr. Lan once heard the singing. Uncle Ba tried to stop us at first. Warning, don't mess around during the full moon. But seeing we were dead set on it, he just sighed and quietly handed us the key to the side gate. That night, the sky was clear. The moon was round and bright, like a silver plate floating above a navy blue sky. The air felt strange, not exactly cold, but my goosebumps stood up the moment we stepped past the gate. The cemetery at night was completely still. Our footsteps echoed on the stone path, flanked by all kinds of graves, some towering like shrines, others just cracked concrete slabs covered in moss. The scent of old incense, damp grass, and aged earth mixed into something oddly distinct, the smell of absence. We stopped often to record footage. Min, in high spirits, filmed a few artsy shots, slowly panning his camera over the graves while shining his flashlight upward for eerie lighting. Once, while I was recording audio, the device suddenly made a strange static noise, like signal interference. Min joked, "Maybe we're picking up ghost frequencies?" I laughed it off, but my hands were already clammy. We went deeper into the western section. Min had mounted the camera to his shoulder, while I carried a flashlight and audio recorder. The deeper we went, the stronger the wind got. The tamarind trees swayed above us, their branches whispering like voices at our ears. Around midnight, just as we finished setting up, the singing began. It didn't come from a speaker or some prankster hiding nearby. It came from, straight ahead, among the pitch-black graves. The voice soared, echoing in the style of classic Kai Luong. It was mournful, melodic, like someone pouring their soul into every note, waiting, always waiting, for someone who never came back. I froze. Min's eyes widened as he shakily adjusted the focus. The camera captured a blurry figure in the distance, a woman in a white áo dai, traditional Vietnamese dress. Long hair covering her face, standing silently between two large tombs. I tried to call Min's name, but my throat tightened. That white figure turned to face us. We couldn't see her face clearly, but I knew, without a doubt, that wasn't someone alive. The recorder in my hand blinked rapidly, capturing every note of the song in chilling clarity. But strangely, Min heard nothing. The camera's recording, but it's dead silent. I don't hear any singing. Before I could explain, the wind surged, fierce and loud. Tree branches whipped back and forth. The white figure began to move, not walk, but glide. Suddenly, the sky shifted. Clouds swept in, covering the moon. The air grew heavy, like something was pressing down on our chests. I saw Min step back, his face pale as paper. Then, from far away, came a series of haunting sounds, wooden clappers and drums, like a slow funeral rhythm from a Kai Luong performance. Kai Luong, a traditional southern Vietnamese operatic style. But these weren't cheerful or lively, they were mournful, dragging like a dirge. In the darkness, I saw what looked like figures lined up on either side of the path, unmoving like stone statues. But when I shone my flashlight in their direction, nothing was there. I shouted, "Run!" We bolted back toward the gate. Min tripped over a tree root and fell hard. I yanked him up. The wind howled in our faces, pushing us back, like something didn't want us to leave. I swear I felt a cold hand graze my back. When we finally got out, I turned around. No one was there. Just a white áo dai fluttering on the highest branch of the tamarind tree. I don't remember how long we ran. By the time we got home, it was almost 2 a.m. Min played the footage back. Only shaky, blurry shots, no white figure, no singing, just wind, and one strange sound, like someone softly crying. Then, At the very end of the tape, on a pitch-black screen, appeared a faint line of text. No one had added it. We checked. I'm still waiting. Chapter 4. Secrets Behind the Curtain. After that moonlit night, I felt haunted. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure in the white-out dye standing between two graves. The singing echoed endlessly, as if it came from inside my own head. Every night, I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, even though the air was hot and heavy. Min, on the other hand, was different. He admitted it creeped him out, but he was also excited. He wanted to go back, this time more prepared, bringing infrared cameras, motion sensors, and a whole bunch of professional recording gear. He even joked, maybe we'll catch something viral and hit YouTube trending. But I wasn't ready. I knew something had awakened in that cemetery, and I needed to understand it before I dared to return. I went back to see Uncle Ba. He was sitting alone on his bamboo hammock outside the caretaker's shack. White hair blowing in the breeze, eyes half shut like he was lost in a dream. When he saw me, he gave a glance and said, "You saw her, didn't you? Now do you believe?" I didn't answer right away. I sat on the stone bench, staring at the half-burnt incense sticks nearby, and quietly asked, "Do you know who she really is? Not just rumors, the truth." Uncle Ba exhaled a long puff of smoke, his eyes gazing far away as if through a mist of memory. Her name was Han, Nguyen Ngoc Han, a famous Kai Luong performer in her time, and a tragic soul. Back when I was young, I used to go to the theater all the time. Her voice, it was sorrowful like receding water. Once, I saw her perform the role of Lan in Lan and Deep. The scene where she says goodbye to Deep. No one in the theater dared to breathe. It was like her singing squeezed the heart right out of your chest. I told him everything I'd heard from Grandma Sao and Mr. Lan. Uncle Ba nodded slowly. You know, when an artist dies with unfinished dreams, their voice doesn't vanish. It lingers in the places where their hearts were most broken. Han didn't just die of heartbreak. There was more, unspoken pain, injustice. I begged him to tell me more. After hesitating, he spoke in a low voice. After 1975, Kai Luong was tightly controlled. Any play considered melancholic or politically inappropriate was banned. Many artists saw their careers ended overnight. Han had a lover who was a soldier from the old regime. He was sent to a re-education camp. People said she waited for him for years. She herself was blacklisted, couldn't perform anymore, and had to live quietly in poverty, renting tiny rooms to survive. Then one night, someone saw her wandering the cemetery. That night was the full moon of the 7th lunar month. A chill ran down my spine. It all began to make sense. A life filled with sorrow. A voice buried too soon. And a love story left unfinished. I decided to travel to the Mekong Delta, to the village people said was her hometown. On the bumpy coach ride from Saigon's western bus station to Tianjiang province, I held tightly to a photocopy of an old newspaper article one found in the university library, an article from 1974 about Han's final performance at Sao Dong Hung Theater. I arrived at a small riverside village. The houses were scattered. The air was warm and humid, but peaceful. There, I met an elderly woman named Ba Duyen, slim, white-haired, living in an old clay-tiled house surrounded by fruit trees. She was a distant relative on Han's mother's side. At first, she was cautious, but when I mentioned Kai Luang and shared what I'd seen at Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery, her expression changed. She sat still for a while, then took out an old handkerchief and gently wiped the corners of her eyes. Han, she was such a gentle girl, loved to sing ever since she was little. Every evening, she'd climb onto a brick platform behind the house and sing alone, sometimes even standing in the rain. After school, she'd hum Vong Ko all the way home. Her parents didn't want her joining a traveling troupe, but she ran off anyway, followed her dreams to the city. I asked her about Han's love life. She sighed, her voice hoarse. She loved a soldier from the central region. He truly cared for her, planned to marry her, but his family didn't approve of performers. And with the war, everything was unstable. He went off to fight and never came back. She waited until she was old. He never returned. Do you know when Han passed away? No one knows for sure. Some say they saw her one last time in 1984. She came home for a few days, then disappeared. Others say she returned to Saigon and vanished into the night. I asked if I could see any old photos. She brought out a dusty album, its pages yellowed with age. I turned through it carefully until I found a black and white photo of a young woman standing in front of a Kai Luang theater. Her face was turned slightly, hair tied high, eyes gazing far away. It was her, the same face I'd glimpsed between the graves. Deep, sorrowful eyes that seemed to wait for someone to return. I took the photo back to Saigon, my heart heavy. I knew this wasn't over. Something was still waiting for me in that cemetery. And the next time I went back, I wouldn't just bring a camera. I would bring the truth. Chapter 5. A soul that refused to be forgotten. Ever since my trip to Tianjiang, I felt an urge to return to the cemetery one more time. This time, I came prepared, not to film, but to listen. I didn't ask Min to join me. He was still busy editing the old footage, trying to enhance the contrast, clean up the audio, and run various algorithms to extract clearer images from the blurry recordings. I, on the other hand, brought only a handheld audio recorder, a thick notebook, and the photo of Ms. Han, the one I got from Mrs. Duyen. I'd pressed it between the pages of my notebook, as if to let her come with me. Silly as it sounds, I believed she'd sense my presence through that photo somehow. I chose to return on an overcast afternoon just before the full moon. The sky was heavy with low-hanging clouds that looked like they would burst at any moment but never did. The cemetery air was damp with the lingering scent of last night's rain, and the faint aroma of leftover incense drifted past from recently visited graves. Everything felt muted and heavy, as if this place no longer belonged to the world that spun outside its gates. I walked slowly along the stone-paved paths. Each step echoed in the silence, as if I was treading on memories. I stopped by the older graves, reading the names etched into the stone, some born in 1905, passed in 1971, Some marked only as unknown. Who were they? How did they live? Did anyone wait for them? The thought weighed on my heart. I returned to the same spot as that night, the western part of the cemetery, where the old tamarind trees arched like withered arms holding onto the past. I stood there for a long while, set the recorder gently on the ground, then opened my notebook to the page with Ms. Han's photo. I know you've never had the chance to tell your full story, I whispered, but I'm here to listen, even if it's just a little. I closed my eyes. At first, there was nothing, only the wind rustling the leaves, and the distant call of a crow. A dry tamarind leaf drifted down onto my shoulder, light as a touch from an unseen hand. I didn't move, I just listened. Then, faintly, as if rising from the earth, the singing returned. It wasn't as clear as the night before. It was fainter, carried by the wind from afar, but the melody was unmistakable. A vong co, a classic southern Vietnamese opera tune, and it was the very same line Mr. Lan once hummed. I vow to follow you, to the world beyond. I opened my eyes. No one was there. In front of me were only the weathered tombstones, the old tamarind tree, and a gray, blurred sky. But I knew what I had heard. I didn't see Ms. Han's figure. There was no mist or glowing light, but I could feel her presence in the rhythm of the wind, in the melody that still lingered. I picked up the recorder and left the cemetery. On my way home, I stopped by a photo shop and had the picture of Ms. Han enlarged and framed. I placed it on my desk, not as an altar, but as a quiet reminder. A reminder that some stories never make it into history books, but they still exist, through memories, through music, and through unspoken sorrow. That night, I played back the recording. The song was there, faint and wrapped in wind noise, but undeniably a woman's voice. Long, drawn-out notes, haunting, and at the very end, there was a soft whisper, no longer singing, but a message. I am still here. I sat in silence for a long time. I knew I wasn't imagining it, and I understood. Her voice didn't want fame. She didn't need statues or books written in her name. She just needed someone to hear her. Just one person, patient enough to acknowledge that she once existed. A soul that refused to be forgotten. And now I understood why she appeared that night, not to frighten, but to call someone, to help her finish telling the story she never could. And maybe that someone was me. Chapter 6. The last moonlit night. I returned to the cemetery on the night of the full moon, the 7th lunar month. This time, Min came with me. I didn't tell him everything I had experienced before, just handed him a short audio clip. When the singing started in his headphones, his face went pale and his hand trembled slightly. He nodded without saying a word. We prepared more thoroughly than ever. 2 infrared cameras, 3 directional microphones, a digital recorder, backup batteries, tripods, fog-filtered LED lights, and an old film camera I borrowed from a retired photographer. I wanted to see if the ghost didn't appear on digital. Could film capture her instead? Every piece of equipment was tested, every angle calculated. We stepped through the cemetery gates right as the clock struck 10. The moon hung full and brilliant in the sky, so bright we didn't need flashlights to see the stone paths beneath our feet. The sky was cloudless, eerily clear. The air was cool and still, so still it felt like the place had been cut off from the world of the living. Uncle Ba wasn't there. I left a small note under the door of his guard shack, with just one line: "We're back. We'll be careful." I didn't know if he'd read it, but I felt the need to say it anyway. We split the gear and made our way west. Following the old path, I brought my notebook, a photo of Ms. Han, and a printed copy of the concert ticket from the 1974 newspaper article, her final performance. We arrived beneath the old tamarind tree. A soft breeze passed, carrying with it the faint scent of incense, as if someone had recently made an offering nearby. I took out the framed photo and placed it gently on the stone between the two familiar graves. "Ms. Han," I said, my voice steadier than before. "If tonight you wish for someone to hear your voice, we are here." Around midnight, the air grew noticeably colder. A light mist spread across the ground. Min slowly panned the camera, eyes fixed on the monitor, lips pressed tightly. I checked the microphones. Everything was working. And then, without warning, the singing began. It wasn't sudden. It didn't make us jump. It came like a breath, gentle, but cold enough to seep into our bones. A line from a Vong Ko ballad floated in, the kind of melody pulled from a sorrow too deep to name. "My love, I have waited, from one lifetime to the next." I didn't look around for her. I closed my eyes, focusing on each note as if they were keys unlocking the door to a forgotten past. Min murmured, "There's something back there." I opened my eyes. On the camera screen, a pale figure emerged slowly from behind the trees. A graceful silhouette, our dye fluttering slightly as she glided, not walked, toward us. She stepped out of the shadows like an actress stepping onto a stage that needed no spotlight. She stood before us, not sharply defined, but drawn from moonlight and mist. Long hair, a young face, eyes full of vast, quiet sorrow. She looked at us. No anger, no resentment, only release. Then she lowered her head slightly, a performer's bow to her final audience. And then, she sang again. Not just a few notes. A full passage of Kai Luong. From the final act of Lan and Deep, where Lan dies in heartbreak. Deep, I'm leaving now. If we meet in the next life, don't break your promise again. I couldn't hold it back. My tears fell. The recorder was still running. The moon still glowed, but her image began to fade, dissolving like mist before the dawn. A strong gust swept through. Every device shut down instantly. Black screens, dead lights, nothing but silence remained. We stood there frozen. Min clutched his camera. I knelt down and picked up the framed photo. It lay exactly where I had placed it. Dry, untouched, but on the back of the photo, there was something new. A faint, smeared line of ink, handwriting, crooked, hurried. Thank you. I didn't cry anymore. I just stayed quiet. Tonight was the last time she would appear. Not because she had been driven away, but because someone had finally listened. A simple thank you from a soul long forgotten. And I knew, from that night onward, her voice would no longer echo through the cemetery. Because now, it had been heard. Now, someone had made space for her song. In memory, in heart, in mind. Chapter 7. The Last Song of a Voice. After that moonlit night, I never went back to Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew I no longer needed to. I spent almost a month afterward reviewing everything. The images, the audio recordings, and the notes in my journal. Min helped me recover the video that had shut off suddenly. The visuals were blurry, but the voice was still there. Clear enough to hear every word. Deep enough to make anyone weep. I gathered all of it, photos, sound clips, the testimonies from Uncle Ba, Grandma Sao, Mr. Lan, and Mrs. Duyen, and wrote a long article for a cultural magazine. At first, the editors were skeptical. They thought I was just writing another ghost story like so many YouTube channels do. But after hearing the recording, the chief editor sat in silence, then said, "We'll publish it, not because it's a ghost story, but because it's beautiful." The article was published under the title, "The Last Voice of Binh Hung Hoa." Within a week, it went viral. Thousands of shares and comments from across the country. Many said they had once heard that voice too, years ago, but never dared speak of it. Some said they had seen a woman in white at the western end of the cemetery. Others left just one simple comment: "Thank you for speaking on behalf of those who no longer can." A week after the article was published, I received a handwritten letter. It was from a man in his 70s, living in Dalat. In the letter, he wrote that he had once loved a Kai Luang singer named Han. They were engaged, but war and fate pulled them apart. He had been sent to a re-education camp, then emigrated abroad, never seeing her again. He read my article online, and he knew it was her. I didn't think she was still singing, but maybe she was always waiting for me to hear her. That letter left me speechless for a long time. A few weeks later, I returned to Tianjiang. I brought a printed copy of the article and the audio recording, and visited Mrs. Duyen one more time. When she heard the voice again, she held my hand tightly. She didn't cry, she just said, "She's at peace now." I left with a strange feeling, a mix of lightness, and the sense that I had left a part of myself behind. I didn't know if what I had done truly helped anyone, but I believed, even just a little, that Ms. Han's voice had finally been restored to its rightful place, not on a grand stage, but in the hearts of those who were willing to listen. Almost a year has passed. I've graduated, started working, moved houses, formed new relationships, new projects, but every night, before I sleep, I still glance at the framed photo of Ms. Han beside my bed. Not to pray, not to hope for another miracle, just to remind myself that some voices need no spotlight. Some stories need no fame. They only need someone willing to listen. And some souls only need to know they were never forgotten. Some songs are not meant to be recorded in studios. Some voices never reach the stage, yet echo through time in the hearts of those who care to listen. She waited not for fame, not for applause, but for someone who would hear her and remember. And now, she can rest. And that, my friends, is the story I wanted to share with you. This is Saigon, a city where every street and every corner hides a layer of forgotten memory. Many places that are now schools, parks, or bustling neighborhoods were once cemeteries. final resting places for thousands of souls. Binh Hung Hoa Cemetery is one of them. By the end of this year, the largest cemetery in Saigon will be cleared to make way for a new school. A new step for a changing city. But for many, especially those who've lived nearby, it was never just a piece of land. It was a place of whispers, of strange stories passed in silence, and of a voice that still sings through the wind on moonlit nights. And who knows, on some rainy evening, when the streets are empty and the air is cold, maybe you'll hear that voice too. A voice that never wanted to be forgotten. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Fogman Stories with others who love Saigon and the mysteries buried within it. I'll see you in the next story.